Welcome into the Fantasy Football Forge. My name is Steve, and it is time to wrap up draft season. Start looking forward to fantasy season soon. So, those who don't care about fantasy football, I hope you stick around with the channel. Maybe just turn those notifications off if you still have them so you don't get bothered throughout the entirety of the fantasy season. And then I'll be here next year. When the playoffs start is the time that I start to turn my attention towards the actual draft season. So there you go. We want to get to the good stuff. So real quick on the grading, got a couple of stupid comments last year, so I figured I should at least cover this a little bit. As far as the player grades that you're going to see for the first day and second day, I was live all 3 days, but I didn't post the third day. But first day, second day, you can actually watch me giving the grades out throughout the entirety of the draft. Those videos are available on my channel. But they're 95% objective. I set up a system that I followed throughout, and it's an S through an F tier grading system, and E included in there, so S, A, B, C, D, E, F. Everything was based on a 7-point scale at the end of the day here, but rounds 1 through 3, the baseline was an A. And in rounds 4 through 7, the baseline was a B. So that just means that the player went in a round that I had projected them to go within. And that's the baseline. The pluses and the minuses after the A, B, S, D, E, those are very telling. That means that, hey, I really like that player. That was my guy, or I really like the fit. For the most part, I tried avoiding the fit because that's going to be more so a subjective grading portion. But it's mostly telling of that's my guy, or that's kind of a guy who I'm doubtful of. I'm concerned about the likelihood of success at the next level for. So, was the grading system perfect? No. It definitely favored good grades. Was it fair? Yes. Everybody was graded on the same scale as far as the player grades go, so it was fair based on, of course, my board. As far as the team grades go, which is the big part here, 50% of the team grades is a completely subjective grade from myself. I look at it, I say, I love a lot of those players. I say, I see the vision, I like the vision, and I say, I feel like you covered your bases, you got some of the needs that you needed, whatever. I like what you did in this draft. I'm giving you an A, or it's an A minus, whatever. I converted that to a 7-point scale, and then that was 50% of your final score. 35% of the final score was the number of players taken and the value of each of those players taken, depending on the round. So a first-round player got just 7 points. And then it's another whole scale thing, objective, right? So I think that you think about it this way. If you were to get every player in a single draft, you were able to draft every single player, on average, you would end up with 5 Hall of Famers. That would be absolutely excellent to add 5 Hall of Famers to your roster if you managed to weed out those 5 Hall of Famers, of course, during cutdowns. If you can't draft any players in a draft, you have 0% chance of getting any Hall of Famers. So the more players that you can draft, the better to some extent, regardless of where they're taken as well. But of course, higher chance that you're getting a better player earlier on in the draft and all that. 10% of the final grade for the team grade was based on the player grades that I did from rounds 1 through 3, and then 5% of it was based on player grades from 4 through 7. Let's get on into grading the what's up first. Looks like it is going to be the AFC West. All right, that looks centered enough down here. So the Denver Broncos take Bo Nix at pick 12, something I did basically every single draft. Then they got Jonah Ellis as a designated pass rusher in the 3rd round. I like both of those picks a lot. The falling Troy Franklin goes. As you can see, the minus there. I'm not a big believer in Troy Franklin. I almost wanted to get him lower on my board. Didn't end up having him lower, so still got an S tier grade for that. Good value for where he was on my board, but the minus. Not a my guy. Whereas Bo Nix. Bo Nix not necessarily a my guy, but not a my guy. A little bit early, but I thought this is exactly what Denver needed to do. I gave it a plus. I don't know that I would have given it a plus on day 2 or day 3 based on kind of narrowing down how loosey-goosey I was with the pluses or not at times, but it is what it is. Chris Abrams-Drain, definitely a near my guy, gave that one a plus as well there in the 5th round. And Audric Estime, I didn't have a strong opinion. I didn't dislike him. I didn't like him. In terms of my grading, he was lower on my board than many, but at the end of the day, goes in the 5th round. So apparently my board was, pretty good there. Gets him an A. Devon Vele, wide receiver who was really barely on my radar, but I did grade him. I actually didn't think I had graded him originally when I just forgot about him completely. So, out of sight, out of mind. Got a D there. I think I must have had a 7th round to undrafted free agency grade on him, most likely is what it was. But then finish it strong there. So, finish it with this center guard. I think that's kind of a need there. By the way, Chris Havens-Draymond is a slot cornerback. I think you got, obviously good players, good value here in general, quite a few 4+ there. So 4 guys who I thought fairly highly of. At the end of the day, I gave the Broncos an A-/B+ for the overall grade. I can tell you for these teams that took quarterbacks early in the draft, it's going to take a lot to get me off of giving them an A for that 50% of the score that's just my subjective scoring, or an A- at the very least, because at the end of the day, you got a guy who's going to give you a chance for a future. And this league runs around quarterbacks. So you get one of those high-end quarterbacks, and I'm going to like your draft to a certain extent, regardless of what else happens. That's going to bring us on to the Kansas City Chiefs, who went Xavier Worthy in the 1st round, as you can see. I love Xavier Worthy as much as anybody else to some extent, but he does heavily worry me for a lot of reasons. I do tend to think the most likely scenario is that he's a bit of a gadget guy. I do think that he'll succeed as a gadget guy, so that's where I do like Xavier Worthy. I don't really like him in the 1st round. I think he was a 2nd round guy all along. Even with that 40, that doesn't quite show up on tape always. So, at the end of the day, Xavier Worthy's either Tyreek Hill or he's Kadarius Toney. That's the wide range of possibilities for me for him. So, yeah. As far as Kingsley Suamataia goes, offensive tackle, a great draft pick. Kansas City, he was one of 3 guys that I typically thought, well, actually 2, because I was pretty sure that Tyler Guyton was going to go earlier than I thought he should. But Tyler Guyton, Kingsley, Patrick Paul, all 3 of them to me were in the same bucket, where back of the 2nd round, early 3rd round is where I really felt that they should go. Kingsley goes right there. That's a perfect A grade there. Jared Wiley, liked him quite a bit. A little too early for me in the draft. Jaden Hicks. This actually, a lot of people liked him more than this, but to me, he was more of like a 3rd round guy, so a little bit of a value there. Hunter Norzad, center. Everybody loves Hunter Norzad, including myself. Kamal Hayden, I thought that was a great pick there. So all in all, I really did like this Kansas City draft. One thing that stood out to me a little bit with this draft overall is they didn't address the interior defensive line, but it wasn't a great draft for that. And they do still have Keandre Coburn cooking on their roster, who I absolutely loved in last year's draft. That was an A+ pick for me there. So I like this draft. I don't love it. The upside of Xavier Worthy and the value and love for Kamal Hayden pushed it towards a love for me, but you don't have that 3rd round guy. That hurts this value a little bit. So at the end of the day, they ended up getting a B/B+ from me, probably closer here towards the B+ scenario, but like it, don't love it is probably the best description. And that's going to bring us on to the Raiders draft here, and look, there is one big dark cloud that is looming over this draft class for the Raiders, and that is the fact that they missed out on one of the top 6 quarterbacks. There was the perfect amount of quarterbacks to fill out the teams with the most, who were the most needy at the quarterback position, and at the end of the day, that was absolutely devastating to me. If there was no quarterback issue, this would have been a quick, easy, simple A for me in the grading. Remember, this is on an S scale, so A is not at the top, but it would have been a very simple A for me. I like a lot of what they did. It's a bit of a mixed bag. I'm not overly excited about the prospects that the defense got any better here, which was, hurts me. You got a defensive head coach. I'm just not overly excited about Decamarion. I don't know if that's how you pronounce it. Richardson, as you can tell, I thought that was early for him. I absolutely love Trey Taylor, but it is not going to be helping, I don't think, in year 1. I think he is a bit of a prospect. One that I love, but one that's going to take a little while. Linebackers, 5th round linebacker. We'll see. I liked Tommy Eichenberg plenty. but especially in year one here, not going to be of a great help. So long term, I don't mind some of these, but the cornerback, I thought we could have done better in addressing that situation for sure. And of course, the quarterback situation. So I do like the long term outside of this draft, outside of that quarterback issue. And I do think that a lot of these picks fit exactly what, this new Raiders staff wants to be. You get Jackson Powers Johnson in there, who I think they're going to be moving to guard, but center guard, maybe a center of the future or something like that as well. Delmar Glaze, I absolutely love him. I think he fits them very nicely in what they want to do. Tackle, maybe guard. And as you can see, he isn't my guy. Got a D+ though, because I think he probably went a little bit early on this. Maybe could have gone cornerback here and then Delmar Glaze here at least to soften the blow a little bit and gotten a better cornerback. I think is very possible. Of course, the big elephant, I do have an S+ for Brock Bowers. I thought the value was good there, and he is a my guy. Did I suspect that the Las Vegas Raiders would be drafting Brock Bowers? No, but I think it makes perfect sense for them. I know they just drafted Mayer last year, but there's room for both of these tight ends to operate in this system. They're going to be running out of that 12 formation a lot. They want to run the ball a lot, so you can move Brock Bowers around, and he can help to block at the second level. It would be perfectly fine. That's his job. You can put him in the backfield as a fullback to help lead the way for your running back, etc. And then, of course, you can run some trick plays off of that, etc. So I do like the draft, but what did we give it? I don't even remember the grades anymore. It was a B-. I did these all last night after the draft. So, yeah, it really just kills it. Not getting that quarterback was probably one of the biggest factors in that B- grade. So let's move on to the last team, I believe, in the AFC, the Los Angeles Chargers. I don't have any notes to help me out with here. So first round you go, Joe Alt. This draft is, I think, what you should have expected and what you wanted and what the staff wanted. So what you wanted from this staff in terms of they got a lot of their guys are going to fit what they want to do, and they got them mostly at a value. Didn't really have to reach hardly ever here outside of one pick that I disagree with, but we can't all be perfect as evaluators, so I'm going to trust that they have more resources than me on a guy like Justin Eboigbe that and for what they want to do, that I'll give them the benefit of the doubt that he probably didn't deserve this D grade that he got from me, but that's what he got from me. So Joe Alt, obviously, I like the pick. I know you wanted wide receiver there, but they come back, they get Ladd McConkey, a guy who I think is very much like a Chris Olave kind of guy. He can be your true Z wide receiver one. While you don't have a wide receiver one, hope someday that you get a wide receiver one, but Chargers might be happy with the Ladd McConkey production. Like I said, Chris Olave type guy. I like it. S+ there. Junior Colson, Michigan guy. You got to like it, respect it. And he immediately has a step up because he's going to be just riding the same system that he rode in college. So he's going to understand the language and everything coming in, or at least a lot of it. Tarheeb still was a guy who I kind of always wanted to like in the process. I didn't quite like enough, so when he went this early, I got a little bit excited, gave it a plus on there. I don't know that it's truly a my guy. That name just always stood out to me. I always liked it. Cam Hart, though, really fits the vision here. Kamani Vidal, I think, absolutely fits the vision. One of the biggest my guys of this draft, I think of him as a Maurice Jones-Drew, and if you don't see how that fits well into a Harbaugh system, then I don't think you understand the Harbaugh system. So I love the fit. And then you come back, you stay patient at the wide receiver position to help fill out this wide receiver room, and you get two guys who I think very much fit what Harbaugh wants to do yet again with his wide receiving core in Brendan Rice, Cornelius Johnson. I think this draft works out really, really nicely. You touch all the areas of needs here, and once again, staying patient just kind of works out. You get quite a few picks, and at the end of the day, I give this, it got an A- based on how I was grading. So very strong draft there for the Chargers. I don't know that I could have done a whole lot better. Just a little bit of a slip up there in the middle of the draft might have hurt it. The grading a little bit too. That's to bring us to the Arizona Cardinals, on to the NFC West. And as you can see, a lot of picks there. I don't even know how to count that high. But starts off with Marvin Harrison Jr. You love it. I mean, what's wrong with that? Absolutely nothing. Darius Robinson, a lot of people's like my guy, at least in the league. The league loved him. I wasn't so high up on him. I like him better as an interior defensive lineman than an edge, but the league seems to want to put him at as an edge. 3-4 defensive end ultimately is going to be his best role. And that should fit what Arizona's system does, from my understanding. So I do think that the fit is there, at least for Darius Robinson. So I like that. Max Melton, absolute my guy. Love the pick. Trey Benson. I had some people, I think, get a little upset with me for giving the Cardinals a running back in the third round. I know I would have given him Trey Benson if Trey Benson was available, unless I know at least in one case I gave them... all the names are starting to lose in my head. The running back from Texas, who I had higher on my board, that's it. So either way, I was happy to give them a high-end running back from this class, and they ended up getting one. And I yelled at a couple of teams for not taking this earlier, and I actually did call this pick out in the draft. So go me. Isaiah Adams wasn't my guy, but way too early on my board for that. Same with Tip Ryman was actually a super my guy in this draft. Absolutely wussed out in putting him higher up on my board. So he ends up getting a D+, but that's a super strong plus. So you got to think when I'm doing my overall subjective grade, that's not being considered a D+ in my brain. I love that fit. And just by the way, Arizona, I think of him as a George Kittle, like possible upside to him. I think he got way underutilized as a receiving option, and so that's where a lot of evaluators weren't. They were looking at him just simply as a blocking tight end. I think he's much more than that, and I think that with a little increase in not even explosiveness, he has that, but a little bit better long speed, that's where you could see him being a George Kittle. He also, like a George Kittle, part of his success in the receiving game is the system that he's in. That goes a long ways towards helping to give him just wide open fields ahead of him. But Tip Ryman's a guy who can slip through the cracks, kind of like a George Kittle, I think, very much so, as a receiver. So excited for that, and he's a great blocker, by the way, too. But that receiving upside is why a team takes him here, I believe. Cornerback Elijah Jones, whatever. That was a little too early for me. Dadrian Taylor-Demerson, another my guy. Loved it. Perfect timing for the fit. That matched my board. Xavier Thomas, not too bad. Some people's my guys, not quite mine. Christian Jones, though, another my guy. After that, I didn't have these two reviewed. I didn't do any kind of film on these last two picks, so they don't really end up factoring into the final grade. But love Christian Jones, went much later than I had him on my board. So something that I did do is if a guy went too low compared to my board, I actually wouldn't allow them to get an S tier grade. I know it feels a little bit weird, but at some point I have to trust that, if the NFL teams pass on a guy once or twice even past where I had him on my board, maybe I had the evaluation wrong myself. So that's where that is, but still gets an A+. Obviously, really extremely strong grade. Is as close to a perfect draft as could be. A couple foul-ups there in terms of player choices that I didn't love, or where they got them. Maybe you could have gotten even better, picks and then gotten these guys later, maybe. But S minus for the Cardinals. Loved it. I'm going to bring us on to Los Angeles Rams here. You start off with Jared Verse, something I think in my final mock draft I gave Jared Verse to the Los Angeles Rams. So I like that. S tier. Good value. He was my number 2 edge rusher on the board. They got him, I think, third off of the board there, like my number 12 player. They get him at 19, something like that. So strong pick there. I really like what the Rams did with their front 7, ultimately. The defensive line, great additions here. Jared Verse, Braden Fisk, my guy there, B+. A lot of people's my guy. Like, he's just kind of a draft darling of the draft community. Blake Corum, not a my guy. This was a little bit early for me, but still strong there right at the end, or in the third round. Got him a B. Cameron Kitchens, for where they got him, this was pretty much where I had him on my board, but he's always somebody who I think he's boom or bust at the next level. I think there's a very high chance that he'd be a bust. However, And I think I drafted him to the Rams once. I drafted, by the way, I did pretty good at predicting the Rams. I don't know that I ever got Braden Fisk to the Rams, but Blake Corum, I know I put to the Rams once because I remember thinking about how he's going to be able to go to lunches or dinners still with Harbaugh because they'll be in the same city. And Cam Kitchens, I know I at least attempted to if I didn't. So I do think that the fit is nice, and if anybody's going to be able to get the best out of Cam Kitchens, I do trust the Rams quite strongly, but still just an A- there. And then Tyler Davis is my guy. Another one of those where I had him too high on my board probably, but I liked him a lot. Could have been an S tier if they would have taken him in like late 4th round or early 5th round probably, but ends up becoming an A+ pick there. Bo Limmer, a guy who I did not love. I always felt that he was behind in reps. I always felt like he was getting pushed backwards. His back was arching back. He was losing reps quite regularly. And so at the next level, although he wasn't literally he was in the process of losing reps at the college level. And at the next level, does that become a complete loss and his butt's on the ground? That was my concern for Bo Limmer. And it looks like the league might have felt the same. But did have a higher grade than this on him, so I thought that was a nice value. And KT Levinston, have him listed as a tackle. I think best situation, they probably kick him in as a guard because it's one of those situations where the weaknesses that you have as a tackle, you put him in a guard, and those weaknesses are no longer there, and the strengths are definitely there. So, obviously, going to like this draft quite a bit. B+, A- at the end of the day. Not a whole lot of S tiers, only a couple of pluses there and a couple of minuses too. So yeah, that makes sense there, but I do like what they did with the front 7 quite a bit. Brings us on to the San Francisco 49ers, and right off the bat, they went with wide receiver Ricky Pearsall. Now, this was not my guy. This is one of the more rare situations where I gave that a plus because of the fit. Once I started talking about Ricky Pearsall and his strengths and his weaknesses and how tough of a player he is, I'm like, oh wow, he's actually a wonderful fit for San Francisco. Wide receiver in the first round wasn't exactly what I imagined for San Francisco unless they had, literally did trade Ayuk, I would say more so, but Ayuk or Debo. I didn't expect him to do that. It was a bit of a surprise. And Ricky Pearsall, this was a little bit high for me. The main reason for that is that because of how tough and crazy Ricky Pearsall plays, the reasons that San Francisco likes him are reasons that I think he's a big-time injury risk. I'm really concerned about his health at the next level because he puts his body on the line for catches. No doubt about that. So you love the attitude. This was a 110% San Francisco draft. They draft football players, guys who like football. They draft tough guys. They draft smart guys. They draft fundamental guys. And you see that all over this. They draft leaders. It's all over this board. And they don't care what you think of them. And those are qualities that I like. Look at all the pluses here that I have for these guys. Renardo Green, tough, physical, big cornerback. Love it. Total San Francisco fit. Dominic Pooney, San Francisco fit. S+. I like the value here. And he was my guy. One of the bigger my guys of the draft. And Malik Mustafa also didn't get a chance to talk about him a whole lot. Safety, 4th, 5th round kind of guy. But he went right where I thought he would go, and he was a my guy. So that works out perfectly, and he fits him. He's a tough, hard-hitting guy. So once again, San Francisco, they want to get into this, rebuild that defense to get a little bit tougher. I think that's one thing that I had as a knock on this draft for San Francisco was not addressing that front 7 a little bit more. I would have liked to see them work on their front 7. It's an S-tier draft outside of that one issue is what I wrote on this. So Jacob Cowing, I think that's your Ray McLeod kind of guy there. Isaiah Correndo is the perfect match for this system, so that made sense. I think I actually called that pick out. And then Tatum Bethune, I love the leadership quality. He was my guy in terms of that. Draft pick B. Yeah, we were on day 3, so basically he goes where I'm kind of expecting him to go. So there we go. That ends up being an A+ grade for San Francisco. Yeah, darn right. Yeah, like I said, it's an S-tier draft outside of that one little issue, and then I don't know what else knocked him off of the S-tier, but A+. You can't complain about that. I guess the Ricky Pearsall pick probably knocks him, keeps him out of that S-. Not like it's a bad pick. Seattle Seahawks are on the clock. No, they're off the clock. You got him, Byron Murphy. This is probably the final NFC West team. We'll see. A for Byron Murphy pick, definitely one of the picks that we thought that Seattle might get. Christian Haynes was another guy who I've definitely mocked to Seattle, or at least mentioned, at the very least, that I thought he'd be a great pick for them. You know, that's tough to say for sure. That would have been a while ago if that's the case. But he's a fit for Seattle and what they want to do. S plus, the reason I say that is I don't know how many times I actually had Seattle have a second round pick, and there's no way I was talking about Christian Haynes in the first round. So maybe that's a false memory there. Tyrese Knight, I thought that was way too early there for him. Had a lot of other linebackers ahead of it, and obviously on my board, I had him much lower. Might be an undrafted free agent guy on my board. AJ Barner, actually a tight end that I do like. I moved them back a little bit. Originally, I did at one point have him as like a 4th round or a 4th, 5th round grade, but I had to make my gradings a little bit tougher, and he was one guy that got pushed back a little ways. He is a blocking tight end. I don't think he's anything more than that. Not that he can't catch a ball or 15 maybe throughout the season. Well, not even 9 throughout the season, but he's going to help you block. He was a bit of a my guy. I really liked him, and there was there wasn't another tight end you were grabbing that could block like AJ Barner did. Maybe Tip Ryman somewhere on that scale a little bit, but AJ Barner, really, really good blocking tight end. Nehemiah Pritchett, okay cornerback. There were others that I liked more than him. The value I guess was okay, but there was still quite a few cornerbacks available that I liked. That happens every year. But then they did come back and get DJ James later, who I like more, so that all worked out. Not a big fan of Sauta Luama. And then Mike Jarrell, I don't know anything about. So at the end of the day, I mean, you could see maybe not as static. What did we get here? A B. A fine draft for the Seattle Seahawks. No second round value. That definitely hurt the final score here. And Sua Lauma's not a my guy. AJ Barner, though he might be a my guy. I thought you could get him later. But started the draft off real strong with those first 2 picks. You love those picks. After that, it kind of went downhill for me. And that is it for the AFC and the NFC West. Thank you very much for tuning on in. Hope you liked it. Let me tune in, to sound off in the comments. And don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe to the video. Peace out.